From London, this is the Standard Podcast, and I'm Mark Blunden. Coming up in this episode, meet the Royal Ballet's hip-hop choreographer. But first, lorry blind spots continue to present serious hazards for London cyclists. The London Standard's transport editor Ross Lydall reports haulage companies have been given more time to tackle vision issues with HGVs being driven in London, despite concerns expressed by cycle campaigners. Tougher rules on cameras, mirrors and sensors that must be fitted to lorries weighing 12 tonnes or more come into force on October the 28th. But Transport for London has offered the haulage industry 6 extra months to fit the safety equipment to about 216,000 lorries with the lowest safety ratings. It comes despite 3 of the 4 people killed cycling in London in 2024 being in collision with HGVs. This grace period, which runs until May the 4th next year, has been granted despite the concerns of the London Cycling Campaign and Neda Darabi and Victoria Lebrec, 2 women who suffered life-changing injuries when they were hit by HGVs while cycling in the capital. So when lives are at stake, what's behind the delays? Ross joins the Standard Podcast now. Ross, what's your appraisal of the dangers faced still by London cyclists from lorries?
I can recall covering this as far back as 2015 and even before that. But in 2015, there was a sort of seminal moment in terms of exactly how bad this was getting for cyclists in London when a young worker was heading through Bank Junction towards the South Bank to her workplace. She was called Ying Tao, and she was killed in the most horrific circumstances when at Bank Junction, a lorry turned left over the top of her, obviously sort of killed outright. This essentially led to many of the changes we're starting to see now. Obviously, we've seen separate changes at Bank Junction, but more widely in terms of how Transport for London and the other authorities tackle lorry danger. In terms of it, is it still an issue now? Well, yes, it is. And sadly, also, some cyclists perhaps haven't learned the lesson. Just the other day, I was cycling home from work along Cycleway 1, which goes up through Shoreditch and through Islington. There was a massive cement lorry in front of me. And for whatever reason, about 6 or 7 cyclists decided to go in front of that lorry at the traffic lights and give themselves no space. And what they probably didn't know, but what they need to know, is that they were probably completely invisible to the driver. And this goes to the heart of the problem, that these vehicles are absolutely huge, but they also have a huge blind spot, both in front and to the sort of left-hand side. And that's what many of these changes to the regulations are designed to tackle.
How does the direct vision tech work, and why is the rollout being delayed?
This technology involves a combination of cameras, mirrors and sensors. And what the cameras do is essentially they'll be on the side of the lorry and they then beam back to a small screen within the driver's cab, a sort of live image of anybody around the driver, whether it's a pedestrian or a cyclist or somebody on a motorbike, for example. And the idea is that the driver is then much more aware of all the sort of vulnerable road users around his vehicle or her vehicle. In terms of what Transport for London is looking to do, it's devised a sort of 5-star rating that will get progressively tougher over time, in which vehicles have to meet higher standards over several years. At present, you only have to have a 1-star rating, the lowest rating, to sort of qualify for the right to drive in London. On Monday coming up, this will increase to 3 stars, but there is concern that essentially TfL is not moving fast enough on this, because it's also announcing that as well as the new 3-star rating that comes into effect, there will actually be a 6-month grace period. So for lorry operators that haven't got all the new equipment on their lorries, they've been given until next May to get them properly equipped without actually facing a penalty.
So I was cycling to work where I teach medical students at Charing Cross Hospital. And I remember it was a really bright and sunny day, and cycling over Vauxhall Bridge and thinking how lovely London is to cycle in. And as I was cycling across the North Embankment, a lorry that wasn't indicating crossed my path and caught my bicycle and my leg under its wheels, crushing my leg.
That's a clip from Ross's interview earlier this year with London GP and academic Dr. Neda Darabi, who lost her lower right leg in a near-fatal HGV crash while cycling along the embankment to Charing Cross.
Luckily, some witnesses acted very fast, and I was then taken to St Mary's Hospital, I was taken to theatre immediately, and when I came round, the first question was, do I still have my right foot? And I was told that unfortunately it couldn't be saved.
Both Neda Darabi and also Victoria Lebrec, who was badly injured by a turning lorry back in 2014. They have since either joined forces with the London Cycling Campaign or other road campaign groups to sort of highlight the danger. The fact both of them really were very close to losing their life. Their injuries were that serious, and they've chosen to speak out to essentially highlight the danger that these lorries present. Interestingly, both are young women, and it has been shown as well that younger women cyclists tend to be more at risk from serious road injuries when cycling in London, either from HGVs or other vehicles. So that's one other thing that the authorities are aware of, and it's one of the disincentives. In fact, the biggest disincentive to cycling in London is the fear of being hurt while cycling, and that's why it's so important for Transport for London and the London boroughs to continue to take action to crack down on dangerous vehicles, and essentially as well to make it as easy as possible for lorry drivers to see cyclists, because the construction industry says that many lorry drivers do not like driving in London because it is a very difficult environment, and there are many thousands of people on bikes. But really what is needed is help both for cyclists so that the vehicles that are around are safer, but in particular so that the drivers of those vehicles can see the cyclists and can turn safely.
Ross, how much do these systems cost, and what's the delay from the HGV industry?
The cheaper versions cost sort of £400 to £500. There are more advanced ones. If you buy, obviously, if you're buying a new lorry out of the factory, these lorries are coming equipped with all this kit just now anyway. So we're talking about retrofitting older lorries with these devices. The reason it's been delayed is essentially TfL has acceded to a request from the sort of construction and logistics industry, because more than 200,000 lorries have to be sort of retrofitted with these devices, and the construction and logistics industries are concerned that there aren't enough fitters to get the jobs done in time, that essentially they couldn't get all the lorries done by next Monday, hence the request for 6 months more. The lorry companies did actually ask for an 18-month extension, and TfL and Will Norman, the Walking and Cycling Commissioner, who we'll hear from shortly, they feel that this 6-month extension is a sort of fair compromise.
And in terms of London's worst left-hand turns, we really have to be on guard for?
Primarily these left-hand turns come often at traffic lights or major junctions. There's been long-standing issues over more than a decade now. Back in the day, just before the Olympics, the Bow roundabout in East London was notorious there, with traffic essentially heading east, but then looking to turn left onto what's the A12, and a couple of cyclists were killed there. That's because those roads there go down either come away or go towards the Blackwall Tunnel, so that's a particular issue, lots of construction traffic there. Other areas have been around Holborn Junction in central London. Again, the gyratory there, Camden Council has since looked to change the layout there. So there are a number of hotspots, and interestingly, London Cycling Campaign will, in a week or two's time, publish its annual list of the deadliest junctions in London. It did this for the first time last year, and it's looking to look again, both to sort of keep the authorities on their toes to say, we've highlighted this junction, please do something about it. But by and large, it's where construction lorries mix with cyclists and pedestrians. These are the real sort of hotspots.
And here's Cycling Commissioner Will Norman speaking to Ross about the issue.
We've got to work with the freight industry to bring in the standards and get this implemented properly. The next phase in the standard will make the vehicles safer. They were bringing in from the first phase with the 0-star rating vehicles, so they're the ones with the least amount of vision. The second phase of this takes it up to 3 stars. Yep, and so more vehicles will have to have the sensors and the cameras to protect cyclists and pedestrians around there. For the implementation, to give enough time for the companies and the operators to install the direct vision standard equipment, what we've done is we haven't changed the deadline of when this starts, but we've extended the grace period, so that if people have booked their truck in to get it fixed, then they don't pay the fine during that period. So it's not changing the needs for them to take action. The action needs to happen on the October, but the time period they've got to fit that in has been extended on their request, so that there is enough time for the supply chains and all the fitters to be able to fit all the cameras.
Let's go to the ads. Coming up, Rachel Abbott's joined by choreographer Joseph Toonga on fusing hip-hop and classical moves to wow audiences at the Royal Opera House in his new work called Dusk. Why not hit follow? In the meantime, give us a rating. Welcome back. The Royal Ballet is currently showcasing a mixed programme of works by 21st century choreographers titled Encounters for Contemporary Ballets, which runs until November the 22nd. And one of the performances includes a world premiere from former alumnus of the Royal Ballet Choreographic Residency, Joseph Toonga. His work for the company combines classical ballet and hip-hop and is called Dusk. This highly anticipated work is his second for the Royal Ballet, following See Us from 2022. The Standard's Rachel Abbott caught up with Joseph earlier this week.
So we're speaking straight after your press night. How was it?
It was really nice. It was really good. I think for me, it was a real surreal moment, because it felt like this is my first official commission, on the stage with all Carl, Crystal, Pam, and being the newbie. So it really felt surreal, but also just happy to be able to present something on stage, away from Newham. So I'm super happy about that.
Now, the Royal Opera House, that's a pretty impressive venue.
Yeah, very, very. So I was happy to have quite a lot of friends and students that I teach be able to come and enjoy the moment with me, because I know that, it's few and far between. So I'm happy to be, part of that journey, trying to break something in the ballet world.
The whole performance in general, it's called Encounters. If you could just explain to us that, and then also how your contemporary ballet kind of fits in.
In terms of what the work deals with, it matches what Encounters is all about. It's about encountering new works, new contemporary works, but also looking at, from watching the show, it deals with just different human emotions in a sense of some community, some individual.
How do you combine classical with hip hop? For those who might not quite see it in their minds.
I always say to my dancers when I walk into I'm not trying to make you a hip hop dancer, but what I want you to understand is the essence of some hip hop languages. And for this work, we were using popping, and popping has to deal with tension, different dynamic, stops, isolation. So for me, I think when I really try to fuse the two movement language together, it's what's the common ground? What's the essence? What's the body language that I can get the dancers to embody and start making it a norm, something normal for themselves? And I think that's how I really try to fuse my movement into ballet body. It's about, actually, let's find common goals, posture, wording. So you find that the essence of popping in your body. And then we can work from that in building more muscle memory, doing classes more prior to our rehearsal. So it's a combination. I'm interested in the essence of what hip-hop culture, hip-hop language has to offer, and then how you blend that with classical bodies and their knowledge.
What is popping?
Popping is a street style from LA. I think to simply describe it, it's the fundamental of popping is called a hit. And a hit is about contraction and relaxation of the contraction. If we just go break it down, that it is more complex than that, but I think that is the base, or what people will see. We call it a hit. So creating tension and releasing tension.
The music and the set, can you describe it to us? Are you performing against classical or actual hip hop music?
It's a full orchestra, classical score from Marina Moore, a new composer that used to also play for the orchestra at the Royal. So we met through that. And then the design by Simon, it's a light box. It's a massive 5 by 5 meter light box. It looks really epic, but it also looks very simple when you watch it against the dancers and you hear the music. So for me, I think that really helped. For me, it's the first time I ever felt like this is a real production.
Your performance is called Dusk. What's it about? Tell us about it.
It comes from the composer, because that's the name of the score as well. And for me, it's that time of day where things doesn't really settle. It's there, but it's not night, and it's not really day, hasn't really completed. So it's that in-between moment. And for me, it was really trying to look at, moments that have come and moments that will come, and, being unsure of that, but just trusting the journeys of people around you. And I think that's where, I stuck to the title when I did a deeper research on the meaning of the word and spoke to the composer.
And what does it mean to you?
I think for me was being brought up in a single parent household with my mom, my aunties, and I wanted to do a work that, yes, there's other male figures around it, but the main focus is female bodies and the power they can portray using classical and hip hop movement. So for me, it was really about, giving a spotlight to see, when you see the female bodies, their power, what they can do, it's unreal. So I think for me, it was about trying to highlight that, because, that's a reflection of my mum in my life, my aunties, my daughters, seeing their power, and then people not recognizing their power. And I think this gives me opportunity, let me highlight that, because I want my daughter to be able to see people who look like them move in such a way that you stereotypically associate only men can move like. So that was more the personal thing for me.
Now, when you were a young boy in Newham, did you ever expect that one day you'd be on a stage in the middle of the West End?
Not even, minus 100. I would not even expect that to happen to me. And I think a group of us friends we were speaking yesterday, and it feels, something that seemed so impossible, so impossible. Didn't even think that I would be at this moment, at a Royal, presenting a work alongside that and having my mentor and being in a space where people told you don't belong, but actually you do. It's just about exposure and opportunity.
And that's The Standard. For the latest news, head over to standard.co.uk. This podcast is back tomorrow at 4 p.m.